Hi, my name is Anne, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the career path that I'm following. And that career path is early childhood education. Early childhood education is quite a rewarding career path because not only do we get to mold young minds, we get to see them grow to be our future engineers, our future lawmakers, maybe our future president, engineers, doctors, lawyers. It's a really rewarding experience, and it's a rewarding career to choose. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly is earlyhood child education. So early childhood education is basically child care centers that provide care for children ages usually 6 weeks old to 5 years old, children that are there before the age of kindergarten. And they offer basic cognitive skills, social skills, gross motor skills, fine motor skills, those type of things, basic kindergarten readiness skills. And they offer those so that when children do approach the elementary school age, they are ready and they're mentally and physically and socially ready to go to kindergarten. Now let's talk a little bit about, if you do decide to follow that career path, what different positions may be available for you if you decide to become into the preschool teacher. We have Usually you will start off as a teacher assistant, and the teacher assistants usually help in the classroom with the lead teacher. They have responsibilities such as, if you're with the younger kids, you usually get stuck with diaper duty and some cleaning responsibilities, but you do get to do some teaching. You do get to help with the lesson plans. You'll help with corralling the children and doing some circle time, where you're reading stories, doing some crafts, and just maybe help with some of the curriculum. After you've been a teacher assistant, you usually, hopefully, will get to have the position of a lead teacher. So after that, then you will become a lead teacher. The lead teachers, of course, have some more responsibilities. They usually will be the lead, of course, the lead of the class. They're responsible for doing lesson plans and doing the curriculum for the class. They will do things such as schedule parent-teacher conferences. They'll do assessments throughout the year to make sure that the children are progressing appropriately throughout the year, making sure that they're getting ready for kindergarten. They will also do maybe sometimes supply ordering. They will do meal prep. They'll have to sometimes do field trips. There's just a number of things that preschool teachers have to do. Now, if you are wanting to further your career in childcare, sometimes you may want to go on to be a preschool director or an assistant director. Now, that comes with the most responsibility because they not only have to deal with the children of the school, they also have to deal with the staff and the parents of that have the children enrolled in the school as well. So they have to also make sure that the children's immunizations are up to date in the school. That's a big responsibility, because if not, then when the state comes in to do inspections and audits, then they can get in trouble if everybody's not up to code. And employees also have to have their immunizations up to date as well. So they have to deal with complaints from parents if there are any, and they have to deal with staff. And if a staff member calls out, then they do sometimes have to be in the classroom as well. So they have to make sure that they're up to date on their early childhood education information as well, knowing what's going on with the curriculum and the early childhood standards. So they have a lot of responsibility as well. So preschool directors have a lot of responsibility. So moving on, where might you find employment if you do decide to be an early childhood educator? There's several different sources of early childhood education. So some people have, usually it's single-family homes. They have converted their homes or some part of their home into a child care facility. And you might find a position there. Usually it's somebody you may know already, that they maybe have a high enrollment and they just need some help. So you may find a position there. You also have child care franchises, and those are good places to work, because if you're working there and perhaps you need to move, you are able to transfer to a sister company. So that's a good place to work too, because they're flexible. And like I said, if you need to move, the option is there for that. And becoming more popular, we have our church or religious preschools. And those are just as important because they follow the same curriculum, the same standards, and the same kindergarten readiness as every other preschool does. So those are becoming more popular. A lot of churches are having their own preschool programs. And we also have our state-run centers, our ABC center programs, and then we also have our public school pre-K programs. So those are some of the positions that preschools that you may find yourself employed if you do follow this path. Now let's talk about what kind of credentials you may need or what kind of education you may need to follow this path if you decide to go on to be an early childhood educator. If you are going to be a preschool teacher or a teacher assistant, depending on what state you live in, a lot of them do prefer that you have at least an associate's degree in early childhood education, but some of them you can get by with just having a child development associate certificate. Now that's a certificate that you can obtain through the state that you're in, and it's basically like taking some coursework and getting some hours, and that is something that is renewable every 3 years. And if you do have your CDA certificate, then you do also have to get some further education hours, which would be like your, it's called like a 40-hour certificate. And that's just some continuing education hours that you would have to get if you were to do that as well. And of course, with any preschool teacher or director, or anybody in the early childhood education field, you of course always have to yearly have to get your first aid and your CPR certificate as well. Now, if you were deciding to go ahead on and to be a preschool director or an assistant director, of course, that's going to come with a little bit more education. You're going to, most places are going to require that you have at least a bachelor's degree in science of early childhood development. So if you're going to pursue that path, then you might want to think about going on further and getting your bachelor's in that. So we've covered that. Now, this is the topic that most people want to know about. What are the possible earning potentials if you do decide to become an early childhood educator? Well, according to the BLS.gov website, the median pay rate, for preschool teachers is about $30,000. And for the low end, which is about 10% of the employed preschool teachers, is around $20,000. And then the high end for the preschool teachers, which is about another 10% of them, is about $55,000. That percentage is few and far between, but it'd be nice to find a position that does pay that amount for a preschool teacher. Now, if you do decide to be a director, according to the BLS.gov website, the median pay range for a director is about $48,000. And then on the high end, it's about $83,000. So that's a pretty good rate for a preschool director. So that's a good goal to have in mind if you do decide to become an early childhood educator. And last but not least, is there room for growth? So we talked a little bit about what positions are available in early childhood education. You could be a lead teacher, you could be a teacher assistant, you could be an assistant director, or you can be a preschool director. After that, you would go on to be a preschool owner. A lot of people have that desire to own their own daycare, their own franchise, and that's something that I think a lot of people who step into the early childhood education field desire to have at some point or another, because it's a satisfying and rewarding career to be in, and that's a great goal to have. And if that doesn't satisfy you, then you might want to consider going on into the public school system to work with elementary age children, and to see that on to further education. And to finish up, I just want to say that this is a very rewarding career, and if you enjoy working with children, and if you want to see people succeed in life and have a career that gives you that satisfaction that you've given something to the community, then this is definitely one that you may want to look into. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it.